Well, it was music, just the wrong music. Welcome to IPSA Kind of Magic, not Cladding Matters. Apologies for that. No idea what happened there. I will take full responsibility for later and tell myself off shortly. We are, in fact, IPSA Kind of Magic, the Association of Independent Personal Associations, currently stewarded, it might be said, by Heather Poole-Gleed as Chief Exec, and of course, our redoubtable Chairman, Hamish McClay, and one of its many members, Mahesh Karai. Welcome, one and all, to today's podcast. The focus for today is talking about, I guess, why it's a new era for search professionals. And I think, as is traditional on this channel, Hamish, would you start us off?
Well, indeed. Good afternoon to all of you. Interesting to note that many of us, in fact, between the three of us who are actually sort of IPSA members, we have seen some remarkable changes since we got involved. I mean, Mahesh has been around much, much longer because he started working in land charges way back in the 90s. At least Heather and I are younger. Well, younger within IPSA, that is. But the changes are absolutely remarkable that we've actually seen the swaying backwards and forwards. Government ideas change. Sadly, we don't really get a housing minister that stays there long enough to understand anything about housing, yet we still have all of these changes sort of coming through from the government. But there's also an impact that we're seeing at the moment that really something has to be done to actually tidy up the whole operation of buying and selling properties. And there are many, many ideas and many, many thoughts and many, many discussions. And of course, it's excellent that we have Heather along today because she attends so many of the different meetings to see what these different characters, different ideas, different thoughts about what's coming in. And Mahesh, having been involved with basically sort of looking at turning Cardiff into a sort of using IT at the very early age in 1990 and digitizing what was going on in Cardiff. Cardiff got left behind, believe it or not. After all that lovely early work that Mahesh did, along with sort of Andrew Prismo, my predecessor, they fell well behind when eventually sort of the wondrous land registry caught up. So we've got land registry involved. And later on this year, from what I can understand, they're going to mess around with Shropshire to make if they haven't done it already. Heather will sort of correct me on that one. But it gives great opportunity as a consequence to many of us who are involved with the search, if you like, the search sector, because we don't just carry out searches, we do an awful lot more. We do a lot of collaborative work now, which is great because we've got these. So as many of our members will notice, we have got some tremendous sponsors who help us as well, that we work with too. So it's not just the IPSA members, it's our sponsors we work with as well. But they help us through those changes. But changes there are, and as a consequence, they bring with them opportunities.
Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you.
It does appear, in this very short speck of time in which I've been involved, there's been some quite fair number of changes already. And as chief exec, you must have seen a fair number. First of all, looking back, what's been the most significant change that you've seen since your stewardship at IPSA? And second, what have you got in store for us in the near future?
Okay, so since I became chief exec, I guess the biggest change is the continuing migration of the land charges departments to the land registry digital register, which now that it is working better and there are less issues with it, that saves an awful lot of time for our members. Instead of having to make appointments and visit councils or wait for email responses, they can go straight online and get instant access to the land charges information for properties in those migrated areas. That started before I became chief exec, but has continued to grow and is still growing. I'm not quite sure what the intel is that Hamish has on Shropshire, because I'm not aware of anything that's happening in the near future with Shropshire.
Oh.
But so I'm not quite sure what that one is. But it's I think we were talking about the growth of AI and how we can use it as a tool, as long as we make sure that it is just a tool and that we don't try to use it to replace everything else. And that's going to be one of the new challenges coming in, I think, is knowing how far to go with it and where to go back to the human expertise and knowledge. So it's where the balance is between using it as a tool and letting it take over.
It does seem to be quite difficult for AI to develop a relationship per se with people, whereas what it appears to me is the very essence of what makes IPSA different than elsewhere is it's built on those long-lasting relationships. If I can come to you, Mahesh, I mean, I've heard Hamish tell that you've based your entire career on those relationships. And I don't think AI will be able to protect, as Heather so aptly says, it should be seen as a tool, not as it shouldn't be tail wagging the dog,
Very true. I think sort of obviously with, I mean, as you say, sort of I've been involved with local land charges pretty much from most of my working career, sort of apart from the first couple of years. I've always been in local land charges, whether it be good or bad. I've seen numerous changes from local authorities amalgamating from 3 into 1 in quite a few Welsh local authorities in the 90s, to now with HMLR doing the land registry transition for the local land charges. It will improve things once, obviously, the governments decide to work together, and obviously, sort of as Heather said, so obviously the housing minister and whatever else is obviously on the same ballpark as everybody else, then it'll work really well. But in terms of obviously sort of AI will be there as a tool to help us, but it won't take away what we do, because we are still there, as I mentioned before, to basically work on the little bits and pieces that AI obviously sees but doesn't understand.
What do you find most useful within the AI pantheon for yourself?
Myself, I don't really use AI that often. I've used it on a couple of occasions more recently to look up questions that my clients have asked me, to see if there's any information on the internet. Rather than me having to troll through it all, I just get AI to look at the questions or give me a suitable place to look for answers. In terms of doing the searches side of things, I mean, I'm a more hands-on person, so I don't really fully trust AI as yet to be able to do my work.
I think that's always going to be a problem. AI is definitely a tool that desperately wants to please you at all times.
Yes.
And if it can't find the right information, it makes it up.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I don't really trust HMLR information fully to sort of so I do have to look through it all and just make sure that the correct bits of information are there. It might be just the fact that the local authority on a particular job that I'm working on is not fully up to date with obviously all of that information. I think with Hamish and Heather can sort of quite clearly obviously sort of corroborate with local land charges. There's a turnover of staff, which I think in the years that I've been doing it, it's getting more and more. And the more newer staff you're getting, the less old information that you've got. So whereas you've got the likes of Heather, Hamish, you've got Jackie Dyson, who's done local land charges for forever and a day. We've all got that experience, whereas the local land charges officers haven't. So where do they find those extra bits of information? Who tells them that they're doing their searches wrong? apart from HMLR. And HMLR are basically just regurgitating what land charges have. So it's not really, in terms of AI, yes, it can be a good tool, but you're going to miss a lot of information because the people who know how to do this job have basically either retired or decided that because of HMLR, it's not worth carrying on with their local land charges position anymore.
Hamish, you've told me since unitary authorities started occurring, we're losing talent by the bucket load in land charges and so on, and you've got people dealing with it who potentially don't necessarily know where the stuff is or how to resolve issues.
Very much the case. It's one of those sad aspects. I mean, the first people to go tend to be the most experienced because they're the most costly to councils, but they do look as the way of creating these unitary authorities, and we're going to see a little bit more of it. These sort of mayoral sort of elections, sort of coming forward with the government. But I'm actually, but the problem with it is that expertise goes, but they've actually combined together 3 different councils anyway, or 4 different councils, and some of the members, if they're particularly new, they might know roughly how the one that they are working with has been operating, but the other 3 out of the 4, they wouldn't necessarily know. So they are challenged. So it is a part of the work that we actually sort of do is to refine the information that comes through. And what we tend to find, and land registry are very, very guilty of this, they do an overkill. It's probably better than underkill, but it's mostly overkill that they do. So a lot of their work does need to be refined. And I can see this becoming much more essential when more and more of these councils are being, I mean, there's a lot of them being made unitary. They're speaking at the moment, I don't know quite what they decide with Oxford, but unfortunately, I think they're going to try and stuff a few of us in with the Oxford City, which is that's one of the big challenges with that. Cities operate very differently to rural councils or rural areas, but unfortunately, you get tagged with that. But the expertise, as you quite rightly say, we do lose that, and that's one of the key issues in all of what's actually sort of going on. What we do have with IPSA, of course, we are refining that work, but there is a consistency. We are not constantly changing members who cover different councils. People set out and they start working with councils. They are regularly working with those councils. And that really makes a significant difference. And I think it might be in 2027 that Shropshire is splitting into 2 councils. But we shall see. Heather will probably not know until well after it's happened, but I'll keep you informed.
Heather, I know that there's been certainly a move in the last year or two to improve and increase the number of both sponsors and also third-party organizations that you've kind of become associated with. Is that the general direction for IPSA?
Yes, it is. And that's for 2 reasons. Obviously, there is a financial element to that. And if we've got sponsors, then we can afford to do more for our members. But also our sponsors and our corporate partner members have a lot of expertise and knowledge that they can share with us and that we can share with them. So it is sort of a win-win situation. And so we're always actively looking for firms that sort of dovetail with the sort of work that we do that would be interested in becoming corporate partner members or sponsors for our various events going forward.
And at the moment, do you think that the focus should be on refining data? I mean, is that where we're going at the moment? Because I know that there is more and more, as you've said, data to be found online, but there's still a glut of it that isn't.
There is. I mean, refining data is something that we're experts at, and long before Land Registry started migrating their data, we were still refining information, and more in some councils than others, depending on how the councils maintain their registers. So refining data is something that we've become experts at, and I think in a way that is going to be our USP going forward, because we know that when people are using AI, it gives you far too much information, so we hear cases where we had a presentation recently at the COPSO conference from the Property Ombudsman, and they said now that their complaints that they're receiving in are so long and involved because members of the public are using AI to help them make that complaint, and it is quoting all these different references, and it's taking them longer simply to read that complaint and find out whether it has any relevance and whether that's going to go anywhere. And I think that's the same sort of thing. If you were using AI to do your actual searches, there'd be so much information there that it would bog down the conveyancers. So we're doing what we've always done, and we are giving them what they need to know and making sure that, you know, we're trying to help them keep their jobs as streamlined and efficient as possible. So refining is definitely the way forward.
But it's rubbish in, rubbish out, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Hamish, would you care to take us home?
Indeed. Well, there are actually some welcome contributions there of various ideas and thoughts which are so important, really, at the end of the day, to clients who are looking themselves to move. Mostly, of course, the challenges for those who are actually buying a property. They want to know that they've got the right information and they're making a decision to buy that property. They don't want to be lumbered with a lot of stuff any more than their solicitor does, which isn't totally relevant to what's going on. Right. But they also like the idea that we can actually check out and make sure, because the experience of so many of IPSA members is that they recognize, oh, this should be there. Why isn't this there? Why isn't that there? So as well as the refining, it's picking out the data that has somehow been missed. And from that particular sort of perspective, AI isn't going to replace us, and at least until the 50s. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I can't actually sort of see that happening, because it's clever as it may be, it's not going to take us that far forward. But the great thing is, and as Heather pointed out there, it's great to be able to work with our sponsors, because we can say to them, oh, is it possible to do such and such? And basically we can share that information. But it also, as Heather says, it means their knowledge is improving. Their knowledge, the greater the knowledge they have of the industry, the more effective they can be, not just with IPSA members, because we found this out, because all of the majority of liaison work that goes on between search providers and Land Registry has actually come from IPSA, from Heather, in fact, which is it keeps them really rather busy. But it's so very important that we do have this continuum, that continue the conversation. But it is a great time for search providers to really get themselves together and start looking at the opportunities, because there's some great stuff going on. And so if you didn't get along to our members day and pick up on some of the details there, have a little look on the website, which will in fact be have more and more details. There'll be a little bit of change coming through on that as well in due course. But do keep in touch. We do try and keep in touch, and we'll be doing that sort of more. But we do like to hear back from you. So the more we get back from you, the more we can actually help members generally. So please, if you can, do that.
As an addendum to that, if you want to catch up on previous IPSA kind of magics, they're all available on the YouTube channel, Spilling the Proper Tea. And there's lots there, including other property shows, which allows me to segue straight on to talking about that. We have two other shows tomorrow. We have Property Quorum, which is a bit of a bun fight. We're going to talk about what's going on in the property industry. And on Friday, Cladding Matters, the all-conquering cladding matters, where we talk about property safety and also with relation to cladding. But I want to thank all of you. Heather, thanks so much. Mahesh and Hamish, for taking the time out of your busy days. And to all of you watching, please remember, IPSA, if you're not a member and you are a conveyancer, are interested, Heather will probably be the first person you should approach. And it's not a straightforward, come on, join us, the water's lovely. There is a certain amount of testing involved to make sure that they are up to the standard. I refer to it as like a kite mark. They are the kite mark of conveyancers. They don't provide you all the information, but the information they provide you is exactly what you need to make the best decisions in property buying. Until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, stay hydrated, wear some sunscreen, and please look after that mental health. Bye-bye.
Local skill with national connection. Independent, but never alone. IPSA, where your professional home.